cryptographic technique that is based on hashing. So we are going to discuss technique that is based on hashing, or I can say that I am going to discuss hashing technique today. So what is basically hashing, or I can say what is the encryption scheme behind the same. We are going to learn the same. So objective is you will be learning a encryption technique in today's lecture, and that is based on secure hash algorithm. So you are going to learn the same, and in the end you will be able to maintain the data integrity and data confidentiality. So let's discuss what is secure hash algorithm. So if I am talking about secure hash algorithm, mean to say security plus hashing. Two things are to be used like secure and hashing. So in cryptography, secure hash algorithm is a cryptographic hash function. Like what is basically cryptographic hash function? It is the mathematical algorithm that maps the data of arbitrary size to a bit size that is of I can say fixed like length, and it could has a hash value or a hash or a message digest. So it is a one-way function, that is function which is practically infeasible to invert or reverse the computation. So ideally the one way to find a message that produces a given hash is to attempt a brute force search, in which we are supposed to, this is called exhaustive searching algorithm, in which we are supposed to try each and every key or each and every possible pattern that could be applied, so that we can recognize a particular pattern for the underlying key or for the underlying mechanism. So it could be possible to attempt a brute force search of the possible inputs to see if they produce a match, or they use a rainbow table of match hashes. So rainbow table is the pre-computed table for caching the output of the cryptographic functions. Usually for cracking password hashes, tables are usually used in recovering a key derivation function up to a certain length that is consist of a limited set of characters. So it is a practical example of, like, I can say some trade-off example. So cryptographic hash functions are the basic tools for modern cryptography. Like the ideal cryptographic hash function has main properties like what could be the same, what could be the same properties like it could be the properties that are related to the cryptographic hash function, like it is deterministic, meaning that the same message always results in the same hash, and it is quick to compute the hash value for any given message. In addition, it is infeasible to generate a message that yields a given hash value, that is, if we want to reverse the process that generated the given hash value. And in addition, it is infeasible to find two different messages with the same hash value. So a small change to a message should rechange the hash value so extensively that new hash values appear. So it could be uncorrelated with the old hash value, that is a avalanche effect. So cryptographic hash functions have many information security applications, notably in digital signature, message authentication code, and other form of authentication. And they can also be used as ordinary hash functions to index the data in hash table, for fingerprinting, to detect duplicates data or uniquely identify the files, and as checksums to detect accidental data or data corruption. Indeed, information security context, cryptographic hash values are sometimes called digital fingerprints, checksums, or just hash values, even though all these terms stand for more general function with rather different properties and purposes. So what are the various properties for the same? Like pre-image resistance, second pre-image resistance, and collision resistance. Next is what is the application of the same, because we are concerned with the applications here. So if I am talking about application, so verifying the integrity of the messages and files. Now the question is how we are supposed to verify the integrity of messages and files. Like we are supposed to deal with the file verification. So what is basically file verification? If I am talking about file verification here, so as the name implies, it is the process of using any algorithm for verifying the integrity of the computer file. And it can be done by comparing two files bit by bit but requires two copies of the same file and may miss systematic corruptions which might occur to both files. So a more popular approach is to generate a hash of the copied file and comparing that to the hash of the original file. So what is basically integrity verification? File integrity can be compromised, usually referred to as the file becoming corrupted. So a file can be corrupted by the variety of ways like faulty storage media, errors in transmission, write errors during copying or moving, or software bugs, and so on. So hash-based verification ensures that a file has not been corrupted by comparing the file's hash value to a previously calculated value. So if these values match, then the file is presumed to be unmodified. And due to the nature of the hash function, hash collisions may result in the false positives. But the likelihood of the collision is often negligible with random corruption. Next is authentication verification. So what is basically authentication? Authenticity verification. So it is often desirable to verify that a file has not been modified in transmission or storage by untrusted parties. For example, to include malicious code like virus or backdoors. So to verify the authenticity, a classical hash function is not enough as they are not designed to be collision resistant. So it is computationally trivial for an attacker to cause deliberate hash collisions, meaning that a malicious change in the file is not detected by the hash comparison. So in cryptography, this attack is called a primage attack. So what is basically a primage attack? So it could be an attack on cryptographic hash function that tries to find the message that has the specific hash value. So a cryptographic hash function should resist attacks on its primage. Next is for this purpose, cryptographic hash functions are employed often. But how? Like as long as the hash sums cannot be tampered with. For example, if they are communicated over a secure channel, then the file can be presumed to be intact, like it is not coming in contact with anybody. But alternatively, digital signatures can be employed to assure tamper resistance. So, what is basically tamper resistance? Like tamper proofing, conceptually, is the methodology that is used to hinder, deter, or detect unauthorized access to a device or circumvention of a security system. Because any device or system can be foiled by a person with sufficient knowledge, equipment, and time. Next is there are several file formats that have to be used, like a checksum file is a small file that contains the checksums of other files. So there are few well-known checksums file format like several utilities such as MD5. It can use the checksum files to automatically verify an entire directory of files in one operation. In addition, the particular hash function used is often indicated by the file extension of the checksum file. So the SHA-1 file extension indicates a checksum file that is containing 160-bit SHA and it could hash in SHA-1 sum format. And MD5 file extension or a file named MD5 sums. It indicates the checksum file containing 128-bit MD5 hashes in MD5 sum format. So .sfv files extension, it indicates the checksum file containing a 32-bit cyclic redundancy check, that is 32 checksum in simple file verification format. The next is crc.list. It indicates a checksum file containing 32-bit CRC checksum in the brick format. So the best practice recommendation is to use SHA2 or SHA3 to generate new file integrity digest and to accept MD5 and SHA digest for backward compatibility, and if stronger digests are not available, the theoretically weaker SHA1, the weaker MD5 or much weaker CRC were previously commonly used for file integrity checks. Or CRC checksums cannot be used to verify the authenticity of files as CRC32 is not a collision resistant hash function. So even if the hash sum file is not tampered with, it is computationally trivial for an attacker to replace a file with the same CRC digest as the original file. meaning that a malicious change in the file is not detected by a CRC comparison. So this was about file verification. Like it is an important application of secure hashes, and it is the verification of message integrity. Comparing message digest calculated before and after transmission can determine whether any changes have been made to messages or file or not. So MD5, SHA1 or SHA2 hash digests are sometimes published on websites or forums to allow verification of integrity of download files, like including files that are retrieved using file sharing such as mirroring. Next is signature generation and verification. So what is basically signature generation and verification? Digital signature is the method, or I can say mathematical scheme, that is used to verify the authenticity of the digital message or documents. So validate valid digital signature where the prerequisites are satisfied gives the recipient very strong reason to believe that the message was created by the known sender and the message was not altered in transit, like its integrity is already achieved. So digital signatures are the standard elements of most cryptographic protocol suites and are commonly used for software distribution, financial transaction, contract management software, and in other cases where it is important to detect forgery or tampering. So digital signatures are often used to implement electronic signatures, which include any electronic data that carries the intent of a signature. But not all electronic signatures use digital signature because in some countries, including Canada, South Africa, United States, India, electronic signatures have legal significance. So digital signatures employ asymmetric cryptography, and in many instances they provide a layer of validation and security to message sent through a non-secure channel. So properly implemented, a digital signature gives the receiver reason to believe the message was sent by the claimed sender. And digital signatures are equivalent to traditional handwritten signatures in many respects. But properly implemented digital signatures are more difficult to forge than the handwritten type. So let me show you an example. Just have a look at the picture. How we are supposed to deal with the digital signatures in an online mechanism. Let me show you the picture and I will explain the concept. Concept is already explained, just you can have a look at the pictorial representation of the digital signature process. So this is the concept of digital signature that is being used. Like Ailey signs a message, "Hello Bob," by appending to the original message a version encrypted with her private key. So Bob received both the messages and signature. So he uses Ailey's public key to verify the authenticity of the message. That is, that the encrypted copy decrypted using the public key and exactly matches the original message. So this is the pictorial representation of how digital signature works. So almost all digital signature schemes, they require a cryptographic hash to be calculated over the message, and this allows the signature calculation to be performed on the relatively small statistically sized hash digest. So the message is considered authentic if the signature verification succeeds given the signature and recalculated hash digest over the message. So the message integrity property of the cryptographic hash is used to create secure and efficient digital signature schemes. Next is password verification. So it is concerned with password hashing. So what is basically password hashing? Because password verification, we know the concept. What is hashing? We are supposed to learn the same. So like despite the original use for the key derivation, like KDFs are possible better known for the password hashing, like password verification by hash comparison, and it is used by the password file or shadow password. The password hash functions should be relatively expensive to calculate in case of the brute force attack, and the key stretching of KDF happens to provide this characteristic. So the known secret parameters are called salt in this context. So in 2013, a password hashing competition was announced to choose a new standard algorithm for password hashing. And in 2015, the competition ended and Argon 2 was announced as the final winner. Four other algorithms received special recognition. So there is a lot about password hashing that is to be there. If you want to have a look at the same, then I will provide you the link for the same. Because it is mainly commonly because password verification, it relies on cryptographic hashes, and storing all the user passwords as the clear text can result in the massive security breach. So if the password file is compromised, one way to reduce this danger is to only store the hash digest of each password. So to authenticate a user, the password presented by the user is hashed and compared with the stored hash. So a password reset method is required when password hashing is performed, and original password cannot be recalculated from the stored hash value. So standard cryptographic hash functions are designed to be computed quickly, and as a result it is possible to try guessed passwords at high loads. So common graphic processing units can try billions of possible passwords each second. So password hash functions that perform key stretching such as PBKDF2 or Script or Argon 2 that has won the competition, commonly use repeated invocations of the cryptographic hash to increase the time required to perform brute force attacks on stored password hash digest. So a password hash requires the use of the large random non-secret salt value which can be stored with the password hash. And in addition, the salt randomizes the output of the password hash, making it impossible for an adversary to store tables of the password and pre-computed hash values to which the password hash digest can be compared. So the output of the password hash function can also be used as the cryptographic key, and password hashes are therefore known as password-based key derivation function (PBKDF), password-based key derivation function. You can have a look at various versions of SHA. It could be 0, 1, 2, 3. If any work for any input message that is less than 2 raised to power 64 bits, and the output is a message digest of 160 bits in length. So this is designed to be computationally infeasible to obtain the original message if we are given its message digest. Next is find two messages producing the same message digest. So this is the main thing that how our SHA works. So this is the practical aspects of our hashing algorithm. Have a look at the same. First one is padding of bits. We are supposed to insert bits. So this is the original message. It is consist of k bits that are given to us, and we are supposed to insert 12512 bits, and this is the message length that is to be added. And it could be segmented, like it could be divided into blocks of bits where each block is processed separately. Second is we are supposed to append the length. And third is divide the input into 512 bit blocks. These are the blocks of 512 bits. So these are the three steps. First one is padding of bits like this one, 1 to 512 bits that could be added to the message. Then we are supposed to segment the message into the 512 bit blocks. Then fourth step is initializing chaining variables. So these are the variables that could be stored in the registers. So these are A, B, C, D, E. So these are having hexadecimal values. Those are given here. If I am talking about the A variable, it is having value 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. B is having 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F. C is having F, E, D, C, B, A, 9, 8. D is having 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And D is having C, 3, D, 2, E, 1, F, 0. So these are the values that are to be there. So we are supposed to deal with next step, that is we are supposed to process the blocks. Now the actual program begin. Now the fifth step is converted into various steps. Like you can have a look at the same. The first step of the fifth step is copying the chaining variable of A to E into small a to E. Second is divide current 512-bit block into 16 sub-blocks of 32-bit. So 16 blocks will be there. In addition, SHA has 4 rounds. Each round consists of 20 steps. So overall, there are 80 steps that are concerned with SHA algorithm. Each round is consist of 20 steps. Then whole 4 rounds are there, and 4 into 20, that is 80 steps are concerned with SHA algorithm. But each round could take 3 inputs like 512-bit block, then the register ABCD in which values are copied, and the constant where we are supposed to count it, counting from 0 to 79. We are supposed to start it from 0. So this is the round, this is the value of t. So if it is round 2, the value is between 20 and 39. If it is round 4, then the value is between 60 and 79. So this is the way how my SHA work. These are the 5 registers on which we are supposed to apply the process, and there are various editors that we are supposed to use, and they are fed to the all the registers are after process are fed to the add values, and in the end we are writing the same value to the registers after processing all the bits. So what is the procedure behind the same? Let's discuss. So one iteration within the SHA1 compression function like A, B, C, D. These are the 32-bit words of the state, and F is the non-linear, or I can say add is the non-linear function that varies, and that is less than n, that denotes the left bit rotation by n places, and n varies for each operation. So it could write the values. If I am using less than n, the value could be left rotation and by n places, and n varies for each operation. Next is W of t, that is concerned with the expanded message word of the round t. Next is K is the constant, that is concerned with the constant. And what is add denoting? Add is denoting the modulo function, that is 2 raised to power 32. This is the process behind the SHA algorithm, but in pictorial form it is very easy to see, but actually it takes 80 rounds to complete the same. So how complex it is, you can determine, or I can say imagine. So what is basically the development that is behind the SHA algorithm? Let's discuss same. SHA1 produces the message digest. Have a look at the diagram. based on the principles that are similar to those that are used by RSA algorithm in the design of the MD2 MD5 message digest algorithm, but it could generate the larger hash value, that is 160 bits versus 128 bits. So SHA-1 was developed as the part of the uh, US government's some projects. So the original specification of the algorithm is published in 1993 under the title Secure Hash Standard FIPS. So the Government Standards Agency NIST, we have commonly encountered this term like National Institutes of Standards and Technology that are concerned with the standards. So this version is now often named as SHA-0. So it was withdrawn by the NSA shortly after publication and was superseded by the revised version. So in FIPS Pub 181 and commonly designated SHA-1 and SHA-1 differ from SHA-0 only by a single bitwise rotation in the message schedule of its compression function. So according to the NSA, this was done to correct the flaw in the original algorithm which reduced its cryptographic security. So, but they did not provide any further explanation. So publicly available techniques did indeed demonstrate a compromise of SHA-0 in 2004 before SHA-1 in 2017. So in addition, what are the applications of the SHA? Let's discuss the same. First one is we are already dealing with the cryptography. We are already dealing with the cryptography. So what is basically cryptography? Like SHA-1 forms part of several widely used security applications and protocols including TLS, SSL, PGP, SSH, SIME, MIME, and IP security. So these applications can use MD5 as well because SHA-1 and SHA-2, these are the hash algorithms that are required by the law for use in various government applications, including use within other cryptographic algorithms and protocols for the protection of sensitive, unclassified information. So SHA-1 is being retired from most of the government uses like USA National Institute of Standards and Technology, and federal agencies should stop using SHA for applications that require collision resistance as soon as practical and must use the SHA-2 family of hash function for these applications after 2010. So though that was the later relaxed to SHA-1 to be used for verifying gold digital signatures and the timestamp. But a prime motivation for the publication of SHA was the digital signature standard in which it is incorporated. So the SHA hash function have been used for the basis of block size. Next application is data integrity, as we have discussed this term almost in every lecture. So we are supposed to ensure the integrity, but to identify revisions and to ensure that the data has not changed due to accidental corruption. So if you have disk corruption, if you have DRAM corruption, if you have any kind of problems at all, then JIT will notice them and it's not the question of it is a guarantee. You can have people who try to be malicious, then they would not succeed, but nobody has been able to break SHA-1. But the point is the SHA-1 as far as JIT is concerned is not even a security feature. It's purely a consistency check. So the security parts are elsewhere. So a lot of people assume that since JIT uses SHA-1 and SHA-1 is used for cryptographically secure stuff, so they think that okay, it is a huge security feature. It has nothing at all to do with security. So it's just the best hash that you can get. But it is guaranteed that if you put your data in GIT, you can trust the fact that 5 years later, after it was converted from your hard disk to DVD to whatever new technology and you copied it along, 5 years later, you can verify that the data you get back out of it is exact same that you put in. So one of the reasons I like is that we had a break in one of the BitKeeper sites where people try to corrupt the kernel source code repositories. Next is like Git does not require the second parimage resistance of SHA-1 as a security feature because it always prefer to keep the earliest version of an object in case of collision, preventing an attacker from surreptitiously overwriting files. So the third application is concerned with cryptanalysis and validation. Till now, if you are having any confusion, you can ask me any question. Have a look at all these slides. Next is script analysis and validation. For a hash function, which tallies the number of bits in the message digest, finding a message that corresponds to the given message digest can always be done using the brute force search in approximately 2 raised to power L evaluator. So this could be called a permeation attack or may not be practical depending on L and the particular computing environment. So next is how does it work? This is the formula that is given for saying the values of WT are calculated as for the first 16 words of W, that is I is equal to 0 to 15, that is 16-bit block. The contents of the input message subblock empty becomes the contents of the WT. And for the remaining 64 values of the W are derived using the equation. This is the mathematical equation in which we are supposed to use the inverse. Next is comparison between MD5 and SHE. There are various points of discussion on the behalf of which we can make distinction between MD5 and SHE. So what are the points of discussion here? Like first is message digest length in bits. In MD5 it is 128, on the other hand in SHE it is 160 bits. So this is the first comparison. Second is attack to try and find the original message given the message digest. In MD5 it requires 2 raised to power 128 operations to break in, and in SHA1 it requires 2 raised to power 160 operations to break in, therefore more secure. Attack to try and find two messages producing same message digest, it requires 2 raised to power 64 operations to break in, that is in MD5. On the other hand, it requires 2 raised to power 60 operations to break in. So the speed of MD5 is faster and SHA is slower because there are 80 rounds that are associated with the same. Next is what are the successful attempts so far? There have been reported attempts to some extent in MD5, but SHA1 is not broken till date. There are no reports. So next is there is a comparison for various parameters and by concerning various versions of SHE. So there are various parameters that are given in the parameter block, and we can compare SHA1, SHA256, SHA384, SHA512. So what is basically message digest? So this is the first parameter. If we are talking about SHA1, then it is consist of 160 bits. If 256, then it is consist of 256. If it is 384, then it is 384. If it is 512, then it is 512 bits block. Next is message size. In SHA1, it is less than 2 raised to power 64. In 256, it is 2 raised to power 64. In 384, it is 2 raised to power 128. And in SHA512, again, it is 2 raised to power 128. Next is block size. So if we are talking about block size of SHA1, it is 512 and 256 512. But on the other hand, if we are talking about SHA 384 and 512, it is consist of 1024 bits block. Next is word size in bits. If SHA and 256, these are 32 bit, and SHA 384 and 512, they are 64 bits. Steps in the algorithm SHA1 80, 256 64, 384 80, 512 80. So this is the comparison that is based on various versions. Now let's discuss SHA 512. So what is basically SHA 512? It takes a message of length 2 raised to power 128 and produces the MD of size 512 bits. So it was closely after SHA1 that is modeled, which itself is modeled on MD5. Next is how SHA512 work. What is the procedure behind the scene? First one is we are supposed to pad the bits 128 bits short of a multiple of the 1024. Next is we are supposed to append the length. Third step is to divide the input into 1024 bit blocks. Fourth is to initialize the chaining variables. A is concerned with There are various descriptions that are given for various variables like A, C, E, G. So we are using four registers and we are storing hexadecimal values in these four registers. Like you can have a look at the values. Just note down the values. So next is we are concerned with fifth step. We are supposed to process the block, and in fifth step there are further steps like copy the variables a to h to small a to h, divide the 1024 bit block into 16 sub blocks of 64 bit each. In addition, the steps third is it takes 80 rounds with 180, 110, like 1024 bit block. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H registers are there and constant as three inputs. So each round consists of various operations that are given here. Temporary one in which we are supposed to store the value of the register H plus C of H, which is consist of EFG registers plus sum of encrypt E register, in which we are supposed to store the value of the constant that is consist of 12512. Oh my god, this is very lengthy program, and plus we are supposed to add the WT plus KT constant. In the same manner, we are supposed to deal with temp2 and A is equal to temp1 plus temp2 and B is equal to A, C is equal to B. So this is the way how our program mathematically works. So D is equal to C, E is equal to D plus temp1, F is equal to E, G is equal to F, and H is equal to G. So these are the description of the terms that we have discussed, like where T is equal to round number, C H of E F G is E and F is XORed with not E and G. MAJ ABC is like A and B. It is XORed with A and C. That is again XORed with B and C. Next is sum of AI, that is rotation R. AI by 28 bits rotation, left bit rotation or right bit rotation. It is the right bit rotation. So it could be XORed with AI by 34 bits. Next is sum of EI is equal to ROTR, which is consist of E raised to power E, that is concerned with I by 14 bits. That could be XORed with ROTR EI by 18 bits. In addition, it is XORed with ROTR EI by 41 bit. So this is the mathematical aspects of the same. This is the CRS is the circular shift, that is rotation of 64 bit array X by the specified number of bits, and 64 bit were derived from the current 5.2 input flow. So 64 bit additive constant is there, that is we are supposed to use the modulus, that is consist of 2 raised to power 64. So WT values for the first 16 rounds, it is 0 to 15. The values of WT is the equal to the corresponding words in the message block, because W is concerned with the word. For the remaining 64 steps, the value of WT is equal to the circular left shift by 1 bit of the XOR of the 4 processing values of WT, with 2 of them subjected to shift and rotate the operation. So how complex it is, you can imagine. So have a look at the operator. This is like, if I am seeing the pictorial representation, it is very easy. Like it is very simple picture, but actually a lot of complex procedures are there that are supposed to be followed. So this was about SHA function. Have a look at the pictorial representation. It is very complex to determine which operation, what is the meaning of A, B, C, D, E. Like we already know they are the values of the register. But it is not easy to compute the whole processing in the pictorial representation, because like there are 80 steps and 80 steps could not be depicted in the pictorial form, because we are supposed to process the same in order to do the same. It is very huge algorithm. So this was about SHA algorithm in which we are supposed to operate 80 steps at least. So there are certain applications that are associated. What are the applications of SHA? First one is cryptography. Second, data integrity that have been discussed already. In addition, we have discussed script analysis and validation. Next is attack. It is able to handle various attacks. Next is the shaping, like we are supposed to deal with the shaping here, like uh, if there are free start collision attacks on SHA1 compression function that require only 2 raised to power 57 SHA1 evaluation, then this does not directly translates into a collision on a full SHA1 hash function, but undermines the security claims for SHA1 in particular, and it was the first time that an attacker on full SHA1 has been demonstrated. Next is SHA0. So what is basically SHA0? We can use the same in SHA0 attacks if there are certain collisions that are there, because we are supposed to deal with official validation as well if we are dealing with the applications of SHA. So implementation of all the FIPS approved security functions can be officially validated through the CMVP program. So what is basically CMVP? That is Cryptographic Module Validation Program. It is the joint American and Canadian security accreditation program for cryptographic module. It could be run by NIST, that is National Institutes of Standard and Technology, and the Communication Security Establishment. For information verification, a package to generate a high number of test vectors, it is made available for download on the NIST site. And the resulting verification, however, does not replace the formal CMVP validation, which is required by law for certain applications. So, as of December 2013, there are over 2,000 validated implementations of SHA1, with 14 of them capable of handling messages with a length in bits, not a multiple of 8. So there are various examples like pseudocodes could be used, like examples of SHA1 like message digest in hexadecimal and in base 64, binary to ASCII text encoding that could be done. In addition, we are supposed to use SHA1 pseudocode. So pseudocode is a full-fledged algorithm that is there, that is concerned with pre-processing, then process the message in successive 512-bit chunks. In addition, we are supposed to deal with the message schedule type, extend the 1632-bit words into 80 32-bit words, like from 16 to 79. In addition, we are supposed to run the loop. 5 registers are there. We are supposed to initialize the same. Then we are supposed to add the chunks hash to results so far. So in the end, we will be deriving the value that we have discussed in the formula, like this one. That was here. This one. So in that manner, it works. So what is the conclusion of our today's lecture? Like developing secure hash algorithm. It was initially major concern for defense authorities, and SHA produces message digest, which has an application in digital signature. And in this way, this technique took a contributed in secure and robust encryption. So this was all about my today's lecture. And in addition, there is a reference book that is available in the college library, and you can get it issued from the library. Next is 10 MCQs are given for the reference. Each question is having four choices, and you are supposed to take any one answer. And at the end of the class, you are supposed to submit me the answers of all the 10 questions. So this was all about my today's class. If you are having any query, then you can ask me any question. Thank you. Have a nice day.